Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about Spotify Lossless. So Spotify has launched the Lossless service on the 10th of September 2025. That was just recently, maybe about a month ago. And it has now reached Singapore. So this is a global rollout and it will gradually roll out to more and more markets over the months. Now, what is Spotify Lossless? Can Sonos user use Spotify? How can I listen to Spotify lossless using Sonos devices? And more importantly, does it really matter? And who does it really benefit at the end of the day? Is it you? Let's try to dive in and find out all these today. Now, what is Spotify Lossless? Now, Spotify Lossless is a free upgrade available to all premium Spotify users. So if you are paying for your Spotify, you're gonna get it, right? There's no extra money that you've got to come up with to get Spotify Lossless. Now, Spotify Lossless is playing in a FLAC file format. It is 44.1 kilohertz sampling rate, and it consumes up to 1 gigabyte of data per hour of listening, and that is over 2 megabits per second. Now, this is opposed to the previous very high tier, which is 320 kilobits per second, so about 1/8 of the current lossless bit rate. Now keep these numbers in mind right here. And the thing we have to talk about is, if you're listening to Spotify over Bluetooth, then does it really matter? Because Bluetooth, even the 5.3 that is being used in the Sonos Arc Ultra, is coming in at only 2 megabits per second over the low energy Bluetooth protocol. And AirPlay 2, don't let me get started on that. AirPlay 2 only goes AAC over 320 kilobits per second bit rate. So even if you're going to get all the data through lossless, you're not going to get the benefit of lossless. So does it really matter to you? Now, first I want to talk about Sonos and whether it can do lossless. So yes, Sonos can do lossless. Let's talk a little bit about the Sonos hardware, right? Sonos, the maximum sampling rate for music, it is 48 kilohertz. So even if the service offers anything higher than 48 kilohertz, you're only gonna get 48 kilohertz at 24-bit depth. Now, of course, this is already higher than the 44.1 kilohertz that Spotify is offering via its lossless service. So it is good, right? So Sonos should be able to play that. And yes, the answer is not that straightforward. Now, before we move on further, we've got to clarify the difference between high-res audio and lossless, right? High-res, it can be anything up to 96 kilohertz or even 192 kilohertz sampling rate with a bit depth of up to 32-bit, right? 24 is already plenty high. Mind you, CD is only a 16-bit depth and is already considered beyond what most humans can discern. So when you say something is high resolution, it needs to be of a certain bit depth and it needs to be of a certain sampling rate. But when you say something is lossless, it just means whether it is compressed or not compressed. So it could still be sampled and mastered in low resolution format, but because it's lossless, you are still getting shit from shit. So it's still the same thing, right? Lossless doesn't mean it's high res, but high res, you want the lossless protocol so that you preserve all the data that you are sampling in the first place. So CD may not be high res, but it is kind of lossless because there is no data compression happening within the CD file format, which used to use WAV wave formats, and that gives you lossless quality, although it is not necessarily high resolution. So hardware-wise, Sonos is more than capable of playing high res, and it is also more than capable of handling lossless formats. But does it really work for Spotify Lossless today? And that's the topic that we want to go in next. How can I listen to Spotify Lossless using Sonos products? Now, there are a couple of ways that you can get music onto Sonos products, and with the Move and the Roam, as well as the more recent Era 100, Era 300, as well as the Arc Ultra, you are able to get them via Bluetooth. The other way, which has been around for quite a while, is using AirPlay 2. Now, these are both local formats, and which means to say they are wirelessly cast from your device. It could be a PC or it could be your phone that is casting over Bluetooth or over AirPlay 2 2 right to your Sonos speakers. Now that method, it is actually of low quality. Bluetooth is limited in bandwidth, and AirPlay 2 even has lower bandwidth than Bluetooth. So when you think about that, then you are really trying to cram a lot of data over wireless formats, which kind of defeats the purpose of trying to get high resolution, lossless information and data quality to your speakers to play. Now, if you are streaming wirelessly from your device to the Sonos speakers using Bluetooth or AirPlay, then it is irrelevant. Lossless or not, you're not going to be able to tell the difference. If you can tell the difference, your mind is playing tricks on you. Now, what other ways are there to get lossless music to your Sonos device? Now, Apple Music has had lossless and high-res for quite a while already, and if you use that method, the way to do it properly is using the Sonos S2 app, right? When you launch the Apple service within the Sonos S2 app and you start playing on your Arc Ultra, for example, the Arc Ultra is not getting the music from your phone. It is actually pulling from the Apple servers directly. So when the Apple servers are streaming the high resolution, the lossless information into your Sonos Arc Ultra, it skips this phone, right? So there is no bandwidth consideration. That method uses Wi-Fi, and as you already may know, Wi-Fi has a lot of bandwidth available, or even if you are using wired connection, even better. Now, when that happens, you're getting full lossless resolution. So you're supposed to be able to get Spotify lossless using that method? Yes, correct. That is the way to do it, right? Using Spotify Connect and your S2 app, right? When you launch the S2 app, you start pulling the Spotify Music lossless version from the app, from the Spotify servers directly. That's how you get Spotify lossless. But can you do that today? The answer quickly is no, not yet. Now, the other method of doing it is to go inside Spotify itself. Now, Spotify itself, you can select the source or you can select the destination where the music is going to come out of. And when you select, say, for example, the Arc Ultra, in this particular case, it's going to say, well, lossless is not currently supported. Well, you have to first make sure that you have set lossless quality within your Spotify app itself. But when you try to cast it to the Arc Ultra, it doesn't support. So there are a couple of things that needs to happen on Sonos side before you can listen to Spotify lossless through your Sonos product, and that's what we're going to touch on next. So whether you go through Spotify Connect or whether you go through the S2 app, there is something that Sonos needs to do. Now, if you try to go through the Spotify Connect app, Sonos actually needs to update the player software within the speakers itself. So that is something that should come in a firmware update. It is not actually available as we speak, as we film the video right now on the 12th of September. Now, the other way is to use the S2 app. Now, the S2 app then needs to send the instruction to the Sonos player, which is your soundbar or your speakers, to pull those lossless tracks. Right now, the S2 app itself, it doesn't have the setting, it doesn't have the functionality to pull that. Now, even going through that S2 app, you still need the player to have updated firmware, but your S2 app also needs to be updated in order to, well, allow you to select the lossless tier, download, and to display the lossless vanity badge so that you know you're listening to lossless, because I guarantee you most of the time you're not going to be able to tell. So if you're not going to be able to tell, then does it matter? Let's get to that. Now, 1% of the people out there who are listening to the lossless tier on Spotify is going to notice something. You're going to notice a slightly lower noise floor, and there is a slightly higher dynamic range due to a lot less compression, right? Because you're getting 8 times the amount of data as opposed to the previous highest tier of 320 kilobits per second. So this goes way over 2 megabits per second, right? Because it consumes 1 gigabyte of data per hour of listening. So that's a lot of data. But the thing is, this amount of data gives you so little. 8 times the data is not going to give you 8 times the quality. Probably 99% of you are not going to be able to tell the difference. Why? Because there are so many factors concerning the quality of the music, the room that you're in, how quiet your environment is, how critical your ears are, whether you're trained to listen to that kind of things or not. And trust me, the less well-trained you are, the better it is, because it's going to be friendlier to your wallet. So with 8 times the amount of data, you're probably going to get maybe 1 to 5% improvement in the quality of the music. And if you make me go through a blind test, honestly, on the Sonos speakers, any speakers, right? The 5s, the Era 300 or the Arc Ultra with the sub or not, I probably won't be able to tell the difference. I'm going to be honest about that. The DAC in the Sonos hardware is probably not good enough to resolve that detail that the 2 megabits per second is going to give you. And your ears, you probably can't even tell the difference. Now, let's think about it, right? If you listen to a song that you love over radio, right, over low quality, you're going to enjoy the song much better than listening to some crap that you don't care about over a $35,000 Macintosh system. So at the end of the day, right, more data, higher consumption of data, who benefits from this all? You as the listener, you who's paying for the premium level of Spotify music, me? I don't think we are going to benefit much from it, right? Because we are listening to music mostly in the car, less than ideal environment. We are listening to music on the go, during transit, in the train and the buses, where it's noisy to begin with. You're going to be listening to music wirelessly, right? Through even this AirPods Max. You're not going to be able to get that kind of fidelity because the wireless protocol doesn't even support that. Now, if you're going to be listening in those kind of environment, really, the high resolution, the lossless quality does not really matter to you. Now, I'll tell you who benefits from this whole thing. The telcos. Think about it, all right? So if you're watching Netflix and say you're watching Full HD 1080p, it consumes between 2 and 4 gigabytes per hour. That's video at full resolution on your screen. Now, assuming you want to watch 4K on your phone, which doesn't even have 4K, so I don't know why you want to do that, Netflix is going to consume between 6 and 12 gigabytes of data. YouTube, right? Say you're watching 720p, YouTube is going to consume 1.2 to 2.7 gigabytes of data per hour. And if you are looking at 1080p, it's going to consume 2.5 to 4 gigabytes per hour. And if you go crazy again and try to consume 4K Netflix on your phone, it's going to consume between 5.5 to 23 gigabytes per hour. Now, do we need that kind of data? And just imagine for 1 minute, right? Spotify is now trying to angle in with lossless, and it says that it's going to consume 1 gigabyte per hour. Let that sink in for a minute, right? So if you are listening to music on your commute and at work, or maybe without access to Wi-Fi, let's assume that you're streaming music 3 hours a day. Then in a month, that is 90 hours of streaming, right? And that's going to consume 90 gigabytes of data. Now you know who is benefiting from it? The telcos. The telcos who's selling you the data, who is capping the amount of data that you can consume. I know data is cheap nowadays, right? Now, I recently watched a movie called BlackBerry. Now, BlackBerry is talking about, for those of you who are old enough, BlackBerry is the device that was supposed to be very stingy on data usage, and it was able to allow you to go on the internet and not consume a lot of data. Then iPhones came along, and Steve Jobs said, look, this whole beautiful screen, and you are able to consume video, load web pages. Everybody loved it. And you know who loved it the most? The telcos. The data guzzling machines. Those are the ones that the telcos will now be able to sell data instead of what they were previously selling, which is minutes. Because there was this quote in the movie. It says there's only a minute in a minute. Now, you think about that for a minute, right? You will know what they are actually trying to do, because previously, how much can you talk on the phone? You're going to call someone that you like, you don't like, and how long are you going to talk? 1 hour, 3 hours? No, because there's only 1 minute in a minute. But if you're selling data, the faster you stream data, the faster you push, the more bandwidth your devices and the software that you need is pushed into your phone, you can sell more and more data per minute of consumption. And this is exactly where Netflix, YouTube, and even Spotify is going right now. So is Spotify making more money from lossless? No, because they're not even going to be charging you more. Maybe you previously weren't a premium user, but now you want to go premium because you can get the lossless tier, and you start ending up paying more to Netflix, to Spotify, but the real gainer, the real winner in this whole thing is the telco, because they are now going to be getting your money for the data that you're going to be consuming over Spotify Lossless. So granted, most of the Sonos devices that you have at home, you're not going to be using mobile data, you're going to be using your Wi-Fi network. But again, I'm going to say this, right? Most of us won't be able to tell the difference at all. Now, if you're out and about and listening on your Sonos Ace headphones, or you're going to be listening via your AirPods Pro 1, Pro 2, Pro 3, it's not going to matter because the bandwidth is not enough for lossless listening anyway. But does the music sound good? It does sound good already. I think we are at a point where everything is getting too good. So good that the only way they can sell it is to hype it up when you can't even tell the difference. So let me know in the comments down below if you are on Spotify Lossless already, and if you can tell the difference. I'm happy for you. I won't doubt that you can tell the difference. For me, I think I might be able to, but I'm not confident of that myself. And meanwhile, I'll leave you to your listening, and I'll see you in one of my other videos. Till next time.